Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Uniform Color. This happened in the early 2000s. I had an accident that left me with a long road to recover my personal mobility. At the time I lived in a third story Victorian era apartment, so I bought a ranch style house that was better suited to my recovery. The house had a decent size and in my opinion a rather ugly shade of yellow. My girlfriend at the time took the opportunity to move in with me. Beyond family, I had 2 regular visitors, a personal trainer and an aide. So for argument's sake, I can say that everything leading up to the malicious compliance was brought on by one single neighbor. But at the very least, if I had a fire, she was pouring gas on it. I quite quickly met 2 of my neighbors upon moving in. The 2 couldn't be any more opposite if they tried. One neighbor was an old biker whom everyone should have a neighbor like at least once in their lives. The other was Wilma, the noisy neighbor extraordinaire. The rest of the neighborhood was a great blend of ages, ethnicities, families and whatnot. Just good people doing the best they could. Things started off on the wrong wheel with Wilma. Right off the bat, she made it clear that she was the type of person to personally inspect anything you did to your house. And she did not mind telling you if something wasn't up to her standards. This included my old 69 Chevy truck that she clearly thought was ugly. I was not able to drive it at the time as I was mostly wheelchair bound, however I kept it registered and ready. Though for some reason Wilma loved my girlfriend and would talk at length to her. But my girlfriend did not share the same feelings for Wilma. The biker neighbor, on the other hand, being a gearhead, quickly decided that I was his new best friend. Looking back, I'm glad he was there. I'm not sure I ever told him, but he definitely had a way to pick me up, even on my worst days. Problems mounted fairly quickly. I had hired a contractor to make some modifications to the house and we were nearly constantly hit with inspections and stop work orders. It was clear that someone was complaining, and more often than not, Wilma seemed to be in the know about what the inspection was for. I remember one day my contractor calling the police because she was constantly on site and butting in. After that day, she'd stand on the sidewalk watching everything. Shortly after construction ended, rumors came around that I was cheating on my girlfriend. Nikki, my aide, was by most accounts a very attractive woman, but I wasn't her type. To be blunt, no guy was. Then came rumors that I was having an affair with a man. To be fair, I don't know who or what Buff Biff, my trainer / physical therapy guy, was into. I do know he enjoyed bending me into a pretzel and telling me that I wasn't trying hard enough. A nice guy outside of that. Of course the rumors spurred the local church flyers and occasional visits to attempt to save me. Nikki tried to put on a good face, but she was clearly bothered by it and that made us all mad. One day my biker neighbor had enough. He confronted the church members as they were walking up to the house. It wasn't anything physical, but it was loud enough with open windows to hear him let them know that we all had enough. Wilma called the cops, but at least that harassment stopped. From that day on, it seems like I either had the city or the police knocking on my door all the time. If my neighbor took me for a ride in my pickup, cops were called. If my truck wasn't parked by whoever I let it drive in my garage at night, the city was called. If my grass was a touch shaggy, the city was called. If I was in my garage and dropped a wrench after 10 PM, cops were called. If we had friends over and we were boisterous after dark, cops were called. Nikki's fiance came over and planted some flowers for me. She was a sweetheart like that. Yep, the city came and visited and I had to have my yard rearranged. So much for low maintenance yard. All the while, somehow Wilma seemed to know everything about what was going on. One evening we had a bad storm. In that storm, a large branch fell off the oak in my yard and ripped off several rows of siding. Sure enough, the city came knocking as my contractor is cleaning up the branches. I ended up with a notice to repair the siding on the house or face penalties. Now we couldn't get the same siding, and to be honest, I was a bit excited to get rid of the ugly yellow at least on the front of the house. My contractor made some emergency patches to the siding, while we were supposed to decide what to do. Of course, this brought Wilma out, who informed us that the city code required a uniform appearance of the house. And Wilma was not a fan of my stating that I was thinking the house would look good in a tan color. She was trying to steer me back to yellow, because my second choice, white, would have led to too many white houses in a row in her opinion. I confirmed with the city that yes, the house had to have a uniform appearance. This meant that I would have to at least paint the rest of the house to match the front. And that was really the only restriction. Somehow during this time, I had found out that Wilma absolutely hated the color fuchsia. So I proceeded to tell my contractor to paint the house fuchsia. It just so happened that Wilma was away the week that my house was repaired and painted. So upon her return, she wasted no time coming over to demand we painted it a different color. My girlfriend looked her straight in the eye and said something to the effect of, "It is such a lovely color and certainly wakes up the neighborhood." Wilma stormed off. That was more or less the end of our direct conversations with Wilma. She did call the city, who came out and gave us the blessing to keep the color. And she did complain about the hideous house across the street to our neighbors. The officers were also more or less done with her harassment towards us. I'm not sure what they said or if they said anything, but there was a definite reduction in visits. About a year later, Wilma suffered a heart attack, which she survived, but decided to move closer to her children. I moved out a year after that, and I found out recently that the house is still fuchsia. The next story is called No Help, No Job. I like to keep fit. So after my workday, I usually go for a run in the nearby park. I have stayed away from gyms, especially during 2020. When my day is over, I slip into the women's room to change and then leave immediately. Except there was this one day, a few weeks ago, when someone, Becky, on another team was having trouble running macros in Excel. I don't know the specifics of the document, but suffice to say it was the final piece of the puzzle for a big account. So having changed and on my way out, I hear Becky call me over and ask for some help before I left. She's a good kid, new to the company. So of course I stop to explain a few things. That's when her team leader, Lewis, stops me and says that I shouldn't be in the office working in my workout clothes. I'm not wearing anything too immodest, but I'm wearing clothes suited for running, so a sports bra and shorts. I don't want to brag, but I'm in a good shape and rather well endowed. Lewis is sort of a middle manager who isn't powerful enough to be a kingmaker, but just powerful enough to cause a stink about company policies. He's also a repressed prude. I explained that I was on my way out, not just hanging out to work, and stopped to help Becky. Lewis is hearing none of it. He insists that I either change back to my work clothes or leave the premises immediately. I'm not going to let Lewis push me around, so I apologize to Becky and leave the building. Later on, I learned that this night was a deadline for some client deliverables and Lewis's team didn't make it, costing the company the account and lots of money. Low 6 digits annually. Lewis was fired for losing the account and for making Becky do a part of the project that she wasn't qualified to do and that he was supposed to do himself. Becky is still with the company and she and I are now paired in a mentorship program. I wish I could say that I jog past Lewis sitting on a bench in the park every evening, but things don't always tie up that neatly. The third story is called Make It Crunchy. Briefly, during 2020, I worked as a manager at a Ralph's, a New York City area ice cream chain. One night, as I'm helping out scooping, I hear a customer getting annoyed at the window and starting to get snippy with one of the young kids who was working the window. So I head over to smooth the situation as manager. The woman is mad because the hot fudge on her hot fudge sundae is hot and going to melt the ice cream. I explain to her that hot fudge is indeed served hot, but she insists. So I make her a new sundae with magic shell topping instead and let her keep the hot fudge one. By the time I return with that, this customer is stirring her spoon through another cup of cream ice she ordered, obviously about to complain about it. The flavor she ordered was called Graham Crunch and she proceeded to tell me that there wasn't any Graham Crunch in it. That she orders this flavor all the time and she knows that I am intentionally stiffing her. I tell her that this is just how the flavor is and I don't name or make the ice cream, but she isn't having it. She wants me to fix it. We've got some crushed graham cracker topping in the bag. So as she is berating me, I just walk away from her and grab the entire container and come back to the window with it. At this point we've got a line of people down the block because this lady has held us up, so there are a lot of witnesses to what I was about to do. Without breaking eye contact with her, as she continues to tell me that I'm wrong about the ice cream I scoop 6 days a week, I open the lid of the container. And then I emptied the entire thing over her cup of the offending ice cream. Graham crackers are everywhere, her ice cream is now definitely crunchy. She loses her mind at this and starts yelling at me that she knows the owner and will get me fired. I tell her, yeah, Steve is a nice guy. She responds with, I've known Steve a long time. To which I respond, well, his name is John, get out of here and don't bother my employees for free ice cream again. Now sufficiently embarrassed in front of the long line of customers, the lady leaves in a huff and indeed never returns. The next few customers left us $20 tips in the jar to make up for her, so the kids who worked for me left with quite a bit more in their pockets than they normally would and realized that their manager had their back. The last story is called Cut It in Half. I bartend at a Mexican restaurant and we often have guests that share the burrito. It isn't uncommon to have people ask if we can cut the burrito in half for them. The thing is, we give them a steak knife for the burrito, so they can cut it up whatever way they want. Whenever someone requests that the burrito be cut in half, I let them know we are going to get them a proper knife to the table, and that's usually the end of the conversation. Sometimes it's an older guest or a parent with some young kids, and in that case, of course we'll help you out, because you need the help. So one day, 2 young couples came in to dine with us, and I got that request from one of the young guys as he and his girlfriend were going to share the burrito. I let him know we would get him a steak knife, but it wasn't enough for him. He was insisting that we cut it and getting pretty heated about it. Unless these two were going to swallow each half like snakes, I didn't see the point. I got tired of trying to explain that he can use the knife however he wants and finally acquiesced. What set me off is after I agreed, he sat back all smug and put his arm around his girl and said, "You see, that wasn't so hard, was it?" So I put the order in and told the chef, we are gonna cut this burrito in half for this guy, but we're gonna do it lengthwise. He was confused at first, but when I told him about this kid, he was all for it. So the food came up and I ran it for them. A burrito beautifully cut in half evenly across the whole length of the burrito. It was impressively done actually. I dropped the food and I could tell he was angry. I was rehearsing my response in my head, but he didn't say anything. I think he got the point that I wouldn't care what he had to say anyway. So after a silent time serving them, they got the bill, didn't tip, left quietly and left a 1-star review the next day and never returned. Nowadays, when I ask the chef to cut the burrito for a family or some other guest that could use the help, he jokingly asked me which way he should cut it. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.